Hi there, Michael here again with a Bible in 1 Year reflective video. This past week we've been in the book of Judges, and the thing that's really stood out to me actually was my emotional response to reading this. Believe it or not, I was actually looking forward to getting into this book. It's one of those ones that was held up, I guess, as a kid. This is a great way of getting boys into the Bible, because there's lots of great characters like Samson and Gideon, and there's some like blood and gore, and kind of it's quite good fun. And so I was looking forward to it. And then actually, as we got into it, the more I read, just the more and more horrified I became. It is quite a harrowing book. There is a lot of blood and guts and gore. But the thing that I found harrowing was just the massive and rapid decline of Israel. And it was probably one of the first times I thought, oh, this is the benefit of reading, or one of the benefits of reading the Bible chronologically, is suddenly these stories, which we're quite familiar with, I think, sometimes, particularly the Samson stories, are suddenly set against the backdrop of God calling Israel and setting them up as a nation. So we've just spent 2 months looking at everything that God said Israel could be, and exploring the law that He'd given them and how He called them to live, and He'd given them all these rituals and celebrations and ways of living rightly with Him and rightly with one another, and taking care of the world properly. And then over the last 7 days, we've read how they just very, very quickly just fell short of that. They enter the promised land. Joshua helps them kind of take control of most of the land, and then Joshua dies, and then they just go just so far downhill so quickly. And reading all of these stories of violence and Israel falling apart, I was left with actually a really troubled mind. Some of it is just horrific. And I just had such a bad taste in my mouth. And, I was even questioning, God, why would you let this be in the Bible? So to help me process some of this stuff, I watched the Bible Project video. The Bible Project is a YouTube channel, and they have overview books for every book in the Bible. And I watched that overview book of the book of Judges. And I was reminded that actually my emotional response, my almost grief and horror at watching Israel decline, is why the book is in there. It's there as a warning for, this is what can happen if you rely on your own strength. You don't let God be your king. You kind of rely on the world around you, and you allow yourself to just kind of forget how God has encouraged you to live. One story that really troubled me from the last week was the one of Jephthah. So he ends up going to war, and he makes this vow that if God gives him victory, then whatever comes out of his house when he goes home, he'll sacrifice as thanksgiving to God. And then the first person who greets when he goes home is his daughter, and he weeps because he doesn't want to sacrifice his daughter, but he still does it. And I found myself screaming at the pages as I was reading this, going, but we've just spent 2 months reading about the fact that God does not like human sacrifice. God has never asked for that. God is anti-child sacrifice. That's actually the worship of Molag. And the troubling thing was Jephthah thought he was doing the right thing. He thought by fulfilling his vow, that was what he was supposed to be doing, even though Yahweh would never have asked that of him. And it's just an example of how easily we can become deceived into thinking we're doing the right thing when we're doing the wrong thing. The irony is that God Himself actually gives the answer to how we avoid becoming deceived that way. How many times in Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy do we read things like, remember these laws, teach them to your kids, write them on the doorposts of your houses, talk about them over dinner and when you wake up, write them on your forehead if you need to. God is really clear. It's by poring over my word that you stop falling into these traps, and you stop this kind of downward spiral of things happening. So I guess, the good news is that by doing the Bible in 1 year, we're doing exactly what God commanded. We are avoiding falling into that trap. So if you are still reading and you're up to date, brilliant. And actually thank you as well, because as you pore over God's word, you will help the rest of us in the community not fall into these traps and pitfalls. And if you've fallen behind, actually, we're just entering the Easter holidays, maybe use this opportunity of downtime to try and catch up. Or you know what, skip ahead. Just if you've fallen behind, rather than you give up, just jump and catch up to where we are now and just kind of pick it up from today, because it's just so important to read God's words and learn who He is and what He's like and what He's about. So anyway, troubling week, but an uplifting one as well. Yeah, we're about to celebrate Easter, and what better time to just be grateful that actually, thanks to Jesus' death and resurrection, we don't find ourselves quite in the same traps with the same powers and principalities and issues facing us that Israel faced. So there's a silver lining to all this, but I found it a challenging week. I'd love to know how you found it. Maybe add a comment below this video, drop an email into the office, come and find us. It would be great to have a chat. And this week, more than ever, I just want to encourage you to keep going, keep reading, and keep sharing what you're discovering of God as we work through His Bible in 1 year. And have a happy Easter.